Hello, beautiful people, and welcome, to what's basically just gonna be a short video covering what we learned from the live stream. I added a few comments about Dehya and Dehya's pre-release from what we learned in the live stream, but I did want to quickly go over a few of the things that they said and talk about my expectations for next patch.
Oh.
I forgot I was on 0.25 times speed. So we have Dehya, as I talked about in the Dehya pre-release, which you should watch if you haven't already. Dehya is a standard character. So she's gonna have her banner, but once her banner's over, she's gonna be added to the pool of standard characters on the standard banner. Not when banner is over, but after 3.6. Okay, you're right, my mistake. After 3.6, not after her banner. So it probably won't be the case during Ayaka and Shenhe's banner. So that's that. Kind of explains why they didn't actually make her very strong. But yeah, so here's the thing, okay? Here's what I wanted to talk about. Here's the reason I decided to make a video on the 3.5 trailer is this. Just watch, and we'll slow-mo it. That's why I was in slow-mo, by the way. I wanted to just watch this. So it would appear that the penultimate, that's right, I'm using fancy word. The penultimate, the second to last hit in her normal attack string has a lot of stagger to the point where it can actually knock enemies outside of the range of the last hit of your normal attack string. It's like they really did not give a shit about this character. They really did not care. It just doesn't hit. But yeah, like, it's not like her normals are good. It's not like you really want to use her normals anyways, but it goes to show the amount of care that they put in this character. Oh yeah, also, I'm pretty sure it does the same thing here, where her E's knockback, her E's knockback is also a little bit too much, making her N1 after her E also not hit, right? So if you watch carefully, she presses E, and then she normal attacks, and it doesn't actually hit the enemy. The second normal attack does. And I would not expect her N1 to be able to hit that enemy either. Maybe it does, but yeah. And then she tries to N1, realizes it's not in range, and dashes. I can't, man. Nah. Okay. This is the second thing I wanted to show. Dehya's E applies 1 unit of Pyro, which means that it's enough to melt 2 cryo hits when it comes to Ganyu, because he also applies 1 unit and melt is whatever. So, you start with the Pyro. Okay, so your first hit is gonna melt, right? Now, because you've hit the enemy and it's a coordinated attack, right after the initial hit from Ganyu's charge attack, Dehya's E is gonna proc, right? You see the E animation, and as such, it's gonna refresh the 1 unit of Pyro. So right now, we still have 1 unit of Pyro. Technically with tax it's like 0.8, but let's simplify it to 1, right? Actually, move my cam out of the way. Then it charge shots, and that's gonna melt. The bloom is gonna melt. Now, after this melt, there's only about 0.5 units of Pyro left on the enemy, right? But as you can see, right, we have the visual indicator for Pyro being on the enemy. Right now, the enemy is affected with Pyro. Yeah, by the way, there's a visual indicator for when enemies are affected by an element. In low graphics, it's basically impossible to see, but at least here you can see it pretty well. And now she charge shots again. But here's the thing, right? It does melt, but where's Dehya's E? Because Ganyu's charge shot doesn't take 2.5 seconds. It takes less than 2.5 seconds. Which means that in this case, Dehya's E didn't proc. Which means that right now, before the bloom hits, we don't have an aura on the enemy. And once the bloom hits, it has been 2.5 seconds, so now Dehya's E is gonna proc. The thing is, it procs from the bloom hitting, and as such, in order for it to proc, there's already cryo on the enemy. Which means that what's melting here is not Ganyu's bloom, it's Dehya's skill. And Dehya's skill's damage is laughable. So effectively, you're not playing Melt Ganyu anymore. But as you can see, after this, the visual indicator that we had here, from the enemy being applied with Pyro, is gone. The enemy is not applied with anything. So this one doesn't melt. But because it hasn't been 2.5 seconds between when Dehya's E procced on the last bloom and this charge shot or the bloom from it, Dehya's E also just doesn't proc here. So not only do you not melt your Ganyu stuff, But you don't even get Dehya's E every 2 seconds, every 2.5 seconds. You get it every like 5 seconds because, well, while you're charging up your charge shot after this one, right? While you're charging up your charge shots, you're not hitting the enemy, which means that you're gonna have to wait for another full charge shot. Now, obviously, there are ways of still making Dehya function in Ganyu Melt, and I've talked about this in the pre-release, where when you use burning with Dehya, it'll be fine, basically. So if you were to use Dehya plus Nahida, then it would be enough pyro, and you'd be fine. The reason why I wanted to talk about this specifically, it's like, why would they choose to show off a mechanic not working? Same as her normal attacks not hitting the enemies earlier. They do not give a shit about this character. They could not care less. It sucks, but it's also like really funny. They're literally saying, no flame to the voice actors, right? They have a script. It's not their choice, and they probably didn't notice that it wasn't working because the aura is not showing up, right? You have to rely on the visual indicator on the enemies, and the voice actors aren't theory crafters, right? But they're putting this footage in while the voice actors say it looks like this ability will be great for creating elemental reactions. It's so misleading. It's so scummy from Mihoyo's marketing department. It is so unethical. Like, holy shit. I didn't notice either of these things the first time I was watching because I wasn't really looking out for it, and I had been awake for like 30 hours. It feels very, very scummy. Anyways, let's keep going. We have the banners that have been revealed. We have Dehya Cyno. I mean, I've talked about Cyno at length when he was initially released. We'll probably do an Ask Jeff Cyno because, well, there's probably a bunch of stuff that's worth mentioning. TLDR for that, for now, he's pretty good, but he's also very replaceable, right? He's one of those units that, like, not the best at what he does, but more than good enough to clear the content. Like, in terms of performance, he's definitely in the top half of characters, but in terms of, like, pull value, if you're pulling strictly from meta, he basically has none because he's mostly outclassed in basically all of his teams. So basically, if you like him and you want to go for him, you'll be able to make him work with no problems whatsoever. If you don't particularly like him, probably not worth going for. Which, in my opinion, is like the perfect state for a character to be, because it means that you're not pressured to pull for him if you don't like him, but if you do like him, you're not gonna hate your life trying to clear Abyss and struggling like you will if you try to go for Dehya carry. Anyways, but yeah, so right, Dehya will not be an event exclusive character. After version 3.6, she'll become available in the standard. And again, right, this technically does not confirm that you'll be able to lose your 50-50 to her. They could make her standard exclusive. They've never done that in the past, I don't think. Technically, they don't say anywhere that standard banners, standard characters can be obtained in limited banners, right? That's just something that we take for granted because it's always been done, and that's how it always is. But they could pull a fast one on us, so just keep an eye out for that. I don't expect them to, but that's the thing that would be funny if they did. Okay, Beacon of the Reed Sea. The Bacon weapon. High base attack. Like, this is the standard base attack, right? Usually 674 is high and 542 is low. And 741 is very high, but we only have 2 of them. It's like Broken Pines and Calamity. This is like the medium one, basically. Crit rate substat. When your skill hits an opponent, you gain attack. When your character takes damage, you gain attack. This isn't as universal as people might think because, well, off-field characters in general is going to be hard for them to get this because characters that are not Dehya don't take damage from off-field. And then some characters have long skill cooldowns, which could make it difficult for them to take advantage of this. But generally, you'll be able to get 20% pretty easily, and some characters will be able to get 40%. All in all, it's basically just a stat thing. Like, it also has 32% HP, which is basically useless for most, except Dehya, I guess, but even on Dehya, it doesn't do that much. It's a stat stick, and that's basically what it is, right? Like, it's a stat stick that gives you a lot of stat. Overall, it's pretty good. Like, it's not high base attack, and it's like crit rate substat. It has a pretty good passive. Because it's Dehya Cyno banner, then this is probably gonna be with the Staff of Scarlet Sands, most likely. If it is like that, then that's 2 pretty good 5-star weapons, 2 pretty good stat sticks on any character, on top of being signature weapons. It would probably be above average for the 5 stars. Now, obviously, as always, if the 4 stars suck, then it's very painful if you want to go for weapon banners, but like this is a good stat stick to go for. Claymores in general aren't necessarily that great, like the weapons. They have really good 4-star options with Serpent Spine just being broken, and some of the claymores being pretty good, especially with one that is also coming this patch that we'll talk about once we get to it. But their 5-star options are generally a little bit underwhelming, right? You have Scoured Pride, which kind of sucks on most people. Wolf's Gravestone, which is a stat stick, but it's an attack percent stat stick, meaning that if you're on characters that don't scale with attack, or if you're on characters that scale so well with attack that you basically always want to play them with Bennett, then this loses some value, right? Because attack percent doesn't scale multiplicatively with attack buffs. It's just, it's just more attack. Whereas a crit weapon does scale multiplicatively with attack, right? The higher your attack is, the more value you gain out of crit. And so when you're playing characters with Bennett, they benefit more from crit rate than they do from attack. It is the same amount of stats as a Wolf's Gravestone, more or less. Wolf's is 20% with a conditional additional, like, I think 30%. And it's also 608 base, but it has attack percent sub. Basically, if you're on characters that scale with attack and don't have access to external attack buffs in the rest of their team, Wolf's is actually potentially going to be as good, if not better. But there's not really Claymore characters like that right now. Unforged is good if you have shields, but has the exact same problem as Wolves, where it's an attack percent stat stick. So on characters that don't scale that well with attack, and on characters that want to use Bennett, it loses some value. Broken Pines is physical damage substat, which makes it a lot more niche. It has a nice support passive, but usually support characters don't care that much about physical damage, and you need to actually do normal attacks to proc it, which is hard for most supports. And then Red Horn is another stat stick, except its passive does nothing for people who don't scale with defense and don't do really normal and charge attacks. It does a little something for characters that do normal and charge attacks but don't scale with defense, but not much. The stat line for Red Horn is a little bit better, but it effectively doesn't have a passive for non-defense scalers, meaning that for non-defense scalers, even though the stat line for Bacon is a little bit worse, because the passive is actually useful, it would be better. But all in all though, as usual, 5-star weapons are not necessarily something that everyone's gonna want to go for, so yeah. But it's a pretty solid 5-star weapon. We'll have new Hangout events. Congrats for people who care about those. New Archon quests. Archon quests have been a lot better since Sumeru began, so I am actually kind of invested in this story. I'm cautiously invested. We'll see, but we'll see how it goes. New enemies, so we've got the Cryo Lector, or Cryo Herald, I think, and a new Black Serpent Knight. Fucking Chad. Where's our character model that looks like this, but okay. One thing about Cryo Abyss Heralds is the way that elemental shields work. You've got some things that are really, really good at breaking cryo shields, and by far the best thing at breaking cryo shield is fast pyro application. And Bennett by himself, like at a baseline, applies 2 units of pyro on his E and 2 units of pyro on his burst. Bennett actually applies a lot of pyro from his things. It's 2 units on both of his things. His hold E is 3 times 1 unit, so you don't want to hold E. It's just tap E. When it came time to Electro Lectors and breaking their shields, you would build Bennett on Thundering Fury instead of a Noblesse set, and just use him to solo break the shield. Against Cryo Shields, instead of doing that, you can't proc TF because it's Cryo, you just build him normally, and once you get to the shield phase, Bennett's basically going to be able to kill the shield faster than any other character, just because of his 2 units of Pyro. You can speed that up even more by using him with an animal unit that can either infuse, so like Kazuha, or even better, that can Sunfire with Jean. Because Sunfire, right, the self-pyro swirl that happens when you have Bennett and Jean, because Bennett applies pyro to your character and Jean applies animal to your character, it's also about 2 units of pyro. And it hits a lot faster than Bennett's E-spam does. Which means that by far the fastest way of shredding these shields is gonna be Bennett plus Jean Sunfire. If we take a look at Hydro Heralds, and I'm just gonna show you how fast it shreds through a Hydro shield, and then I will ask you to keep in mind, Pyro is 4 times as effective against Cryo shields as it is against Hydro shields, which means that it would be 4 times faster than what I'm about to do if it was against the Cryo one. Basically, I just wanted to give you guys an idea for what you can expect. I can't use my normal attack because I have C6 and it wouldn't show it properly. Wait, no, I thought. Okay, cool. But as you can see, right? In one burst, it's enough to take away 2/3 of his shield, multiplied by 4 if it was against a Cryo Herald. So basically, very fast. But you don't need to use Jean for this. It's only really if you want to like speedrun the shield breaking phase. One thing that's very important, Cryo Shields don't take damage from Hydro or from Dendro. And there is a team that is forced to only use Hydro and Dendro characters. Which means that if we get Cryo Heralds on floor 12, Nilou teams will basically not be able to clear those. Nilou can brute force shields, but in order to brute force a shield, right, because actual damage does go through 2 shields. But effectively, if you don't have a way to react with the shields, in order to remove it just from damage, you need to do 5 times the total of HP of the enemy. Against a Cryo Abyss Mage, because they're pretty squishy, that's not too bad. An Abyss Mage on Chamber 1 of Floor 3 would be level 95, 138k HP, which means that in order to brute force it with a Nilou team, you basically need to do about 700k damage from your blooms. So effectively, you can just think of that Abyss Mage as an enemy that has their base HP plus this amount of HP. So so instead of having this, they have about, you know, closer to 800 something k HP, which is still not impossible for an Nilou team to get through. An Abyss Herald has 500k, which means that in order to brute force it with Nilou, you'd have to do about 3.3 million damage. Technically still possible, but if you're not a whale, it's probably not gonna happen. So all in all, just be careful if you're using Nilou not to put her on the side that the Abyss Mage is on, the Cryo Abyss Lector is on. I mean, you can try it. It's probably gonna be fun, right? You'll be able to do 6 rotations in a row and get to actually play the game for more than 3 seconds, which if you're hyper invested is probably something you haven't done in years. Mika, I'm still not sure if I'm gonna make a Mika release. I don't think so. Effectively, Mika has a lot of gameplay issues on top of just numbers issues. The biggest gameplay issue is the buff duration being 12 seconds, which means that it's very tight in terms of timing, which means that you can't start with your rotation with Mika and then go to other things. You have to play Mika as basically the last thing you do before swapping to Ella if you want to play him with Ella, and that restricts your rotation and it restricts the other teammates that you can use. But also the buff deactivates when you swap out, which means that if you detonate Ella's burst early, you don't actually get the buffs from Mika. So if you swap out of Ella to activate her burst early, you'll lose the buffs. I'd say that if you're a dolphin, you're probably not gonna end up with C6 Mika. And if you're a whale and you have Ella's C6, most of the time, the optimal way to play her is to swap out early, because otherwise you'll way overkill an enemy. So you'd rather swap out early, kill the enemy with just enough damage, and start batterying your next burst earlier. Or swap to Raiden and have her do shit, right? Stuff like that. I don't have a hike on Ella. I don't even have Ella on my main account, right? But from what I'm told from the well players I talk to, unless they're trying for a screenshot, most of the time they do swap out early, in which case Mika is basically just useless in her teams. Pre-C6 Mika also, just from a numbers point of view, offers you some attack speed, which is generally going to be enough to get 1 more attack, and some physical damage. But what you'll actually find is that in order to get the physical damage, you need to be against multiple enemies. When you're in single target, you'll only get 1 stack of his physical passive thing, which is 10% physical damage, and that's it. That's literally it. He gives a little bit of attack speed and 10% physical damage. That's it. That's not very good. That's less than Shenyan's shield gives you if you have cons on her. If you're in AoE, you can get up to 4. With constellations, you can get up to 5. With C2, I think, you go to 2 stacks on single target instead of 1. You have to get him a lot of ER so he can burst, because without the burst, that's 1 less stack that you're getting. All in all, effectively, right, he just isn't very good. He just doesn't give you a lot. When you're in AoE, he can be a decent buff, but even then, if you don't have his C6, generally, it's not even much better than putting something like Rosario on your team, because he does not have any personal damage, effectively, right? His burst doesn't do damage. It literally does not have a damage hit, right? Kind of like Barbara's burst, and his skills damage is very low. His skills damage is nothing crazy. His healing is also only to your active character. The initial hit, the initial burst cast, I think is AoE heal, but the healing over time is only to your active character, meaning that he's also not particularly good on Clam, because he's only healing 1 character. Well, he's getting 4 times less value out of Clam than a character that heals your whole party, like Kokomi. Basically, right, point being, if you don't have his C6, he's basically just not even good as a physical support for the physical teams that would want to use him. The thing is, in order to get his C6, you have to wish on his banner, and he's not even paired with a physical carry on his banner. He is getting put on Ayaka and Shenhe banner, which is hilarious and sad. I think that it's a blessing in disguise, because I think that there's a lot of people that if he was on Illa's banner, that would wish more than they were planning to on Illa's banner to get his C6, and then would play him, and then actually regret it because it doesn't even clear faster than there are teams that don't use him and that use other supports instead. This way, at least, people are a little bit less likely to try to go for his C6, and if they do go for his C6, they're actually getting a good unit instead of Illa, so they'll be fine in the face. And then as a support for characters other than Illa, like, he works. Anyone who likes attack speed, you can use him for that. Like, his kit is perfectly synergistic with physical characters that don't have hit lag. So if you play like physical official, I guess. But the thing is, his physical damage scales with the amount of enemies you're up against, which means that with physical official, your attacks are single target, so you're stuck in AoE anyways. I'm saying official because bows don't have like hit lag on their normal attack. But yeah, you can use him just like as an attack speed bot, but like that's just going to be significantly worse than other units that just give actual good buffs. Yeah, I don't even know, man. This is too much, man. What the f is this? Now, mailed flower. I want to talk about the mailed flower because it's unironically a pretty good weapon. High base attack, EM substat, and because it's an event weapon, you get it R5 for free. 24% attack percent as well as 96 EM. It's very similar to the Missive Wind Spear, but it has EM instead of attack as the substat, which is actually a pretty big deal because we don't have good EM claymores right now. If you look at the EM claymores that we have a Rain Slasher, which is 165 EM. We have Blood Tainted Greatsword, which is more, it's 187 EM. And we don't have any like 5 stars. We have the Aquamarine, which is also 165. Basically, the highest that you're getting is 187 from Blood Tainted Greatsword, which means that the mailed flower, if you manage to keep uptime on it, will be at 206, which is more. So this is a higher EM claymore that also has a large amount of attack. It doesn't matter too much right now because there's not too many claymore characters that care about just high EM numbers. But if you are playing like a Hyperbloom Sayu team, like sure, like this is probably a pretty good weapon for you if you don't find yourself needing Fav or Sac. Same for like, I guess the Razor Thundering Fury team. I'd still use Fav over it, but hey, if you don't have Fav, you can use this. It's fine for aggravate characters because they care about the attack and the EM. Overall, just a nice little 4-star stat stick to have, which is good as like a nice free-to-play option. On characters that vape, this is actually going to be one of the better free-to-play options. So I made a Dehya vape sheet, and as you can see, mailed flower is like generally the best free-to-play like guaranteed option. This would actually be pretty similar to what you'd find on Nilou if you were to use Nilou. Point being, it's a pretty solid free-to-play option to have. We've got a Pacman event where you're totally not like opening and closing like mouth face thing, and you're being chased by things that are definitely not ghosts, right? You're a traveler and you're getting chased by balloons, so that is different. Yes. There's a Pacman event. It looks like whatever, but yeah, sure. We're getting the return of the Osu minigame. Ever since the last time, I think it was the last time they did it, when they added like the calibration function, the Osu events have actually been pretty good. Before they added the calibration function, this shit was just painful because you had to like intentionally press the keys at the wrong time because it wasn't calibrated. But no, I actually kind of like them. They're nice and all. Personally, I can't really do the community made Osu maps for this because my keyboard doesn't have, I think it's called N key rollover or whatever. So it literally will not register inputs when I press too many keys at once. And most user-made maps press a lot of keys at once. So a lot of the community maps I just can't do because like I press the right thing and then it doesn't register the input and I'm like, what is happening? Am I just worse than I thought? Like, what is this? Whatever. It took me a while to realize it. At first I thought I just sucked. I didn't know what N key rollover was. I still don't know what it is. But even then, like, I actually like this event. Just like last time, I think it's really dumb that maps don't carry over between versions of the event. There should definitely, at the very least, be a feature to like export your map so that the next time the event comes around, you can import it back. It's really dumb that your maps will just be lost forever. Personally, that's the reason I didn't actually end up making any maps, because I just felt like it's gonna be gone in 2 weeks. Like, it's gonna be gone in 2 weeks, why would I spend 3 hours making a cool map? This is very much the kind of event that, like, yeah, it's not a combat event, and I much prefer combat events to anything else, but I don't need every event to be a combat event. They should make events for all different kinds of players, and this is a very good event to have pretty often. Like, I'd say that, like, for example, I would much rather have the Osu event than like the parkour event that we got last patch, or like the boat thing that we got in this patch, right? That was not great. Anything Wave Rider, just get it away from me. I don't understand picture events. I don't get it. The whole point of photography is to take cool pictures, but like the picture is decided for you in these events. I understand people who just like taking cool pictures with the camera just outside of any events. I don't understand the point of having that as an event. Spices from the West, I don't like this event either. Like, this is a filler, like, this is a web event, right? It's a web event that they decided to put in game because they ran out of ideas. The last iteration of this, it was way too easy. I'm guessing it's still gonna be the same thing. I saw that, and I was like, what? Wait, that's so cool. Travelers can add their completed seasonings to delicious dishes to obtain fragrant dishes? Shit! Are we getting a new way to upgrade food? Yo, that's actually so cool. Wait, I'm so hot. What is this? This item will expire? Why? They were so close to actually adding a nice little cool feature. A spice event that comes now and then where you can use spice to make your food like 1% better or something. And yeah, it wouldn't really matter much, but still, it would be cool. It would be a nice little feature, but no, these are not actual food. These are just items that you can only give to NPCs for like friendship farming, I guess. This doesn't give you physical damage anymore. This is literally just a friendship pot. It feels like a waste of an idea. Making them like actually expire is probably the worst idea I've ever seen. Having a nice, cool way of upgrading your food, but if you do that, if you accidentally make 100 instead of 10, well, they'll be gone. You lost them. Goodbye. Yeah, like, shell lanterns were a little dumb, but the fact that you could keep them, the fact that they didn't expire, means that sometimes I actually like, yeah, this is a good time for a shell lantern. I get spoilers for the Sumeru Aranyaka quest, so skip ahead like 30 seconds if you haven't done it and you don't want to get spoiled. But when the like Aranara turned into a tree and basically just like died but also didn't, I released some shell lanterns. You know, I had a little bit of a vigil for him. It was a nice little moment, and in that time, I was glad that the shell lanterns were something that I had in my inventory. Having like things like this that just expire for no reason, it's dumb. Like, I guess they didn't want you to be able to farm friendship experience forever, but that just goes back to why the are they like giving you friendship experience instead of just being better version of the dishes? And if you feed a character their own specialty as a fragrant dish, then they like get boosted by a full friendship level or something, right? I feel like they missed out on such an easy, simple, amazing idea, and they just completely ruined this. Because, like, I just... Fungus Mechanicus I'm actually excited for, right? So, effectively, instead of being Theater Mechanicus or the Fungus event, what they did is you're playing fungi against someone else doing Theater Mechanicus, right? You're kind of switching around the Theater Mechanicus thing, and you're the one attacking. But I guess instead of trying to get to a point, you just try to destroy the towers. I think this is actually really cool. I like it a lot. It's probably going to be not too complicated, right? Like, this is effectively an RTS, a real-time strategy game. Think of it as, like, StarCraft Lite. Because instead of having, like, hundreds of units, you have 4. And instead of them being able to do a bunch of different things, they can attack. It's like StarCraft for kids. Even if it's not too difficult, even if it's pretty straightforward, having different game modes, I think is cool. You're gonna have to like decide what your roster is most likely based on what you're fighting. It's probably just gonna be like a fucking 30-minute event plus whatever like the quest dialogue you have to do. But still, this is the kind of event that I like when they do. Just like Theater Mechanicus, just like the Fungus event that they did the first time. This is so much better than a Pacman event. They actually designed a thing. That's the bar for the event. Like, they actually did a thing, and this event passes it. How good will it be? We'll have to wait and see, but at least they designed a thing. I'm hyped to see what it's gonna be like. Hyped to see what kind of like elemental reaction combos we'll be able to do. Let's see if we can do a mushroom soup. Let's see if we can do a mushroom soup. You know, we'll see, because like at the end of the day, it's still Genshin. The attacks still apply elements, and those can trigger reactions. So even if it doesn't have nearly as much complexity as something like StarCraft or stuff like that, just applying the Genshin element system to different types of games is just such an easy and efficient way of making good mini games. Vibro-Crystal, that's good. Rerun of Vibro-Crystal is good. Combat events in general is something that we need more of. I think that the concept behind Vibro-Crystal is really good, just like the concept for the potion event and the concept for the energy amplifier. Stuff like that is just really, really cool. Very often they make it like too squishy, but at least you can have fun like doing it a bunch of times, trying to get a high score or a low time. So there's that. Very often these combat events like give you full energy when you start them, which is a way to get full energy in overworlds. So you can teleport to that and then get full energy instantly. It would be nice if that one does it too. Trial characters is always a really, really, really good thing for the game, especially in combat events. Test runs are terrible. I'm gonna show you what I mean with Yelan's test run. I use my E and I get about a third of my energy back, which means I'll need 3 E's to get my burst back, right? With HP particles, it is possible that it gets down to 2 E's, right? Well, here's the thing. Wait, that's not the right thing. What do you mean? Oh, okay, whatever. Additional elemental orbs will drop during trial events challenges to facilitate the testing of the trial character's elemental bursts. In other words, ER issues do not exist in test runs, meaning that you're not actually experiencing the character, you're experiencing a fake version of the character that has a lot of their issues removed. It's really literally written. It used to not be written and they got a lot of flack for it, so they started writing it. Point being, test runs lie to you. Like, they're made to sell the characters, they lie to you a lot. And very often, what the f do you mean it's like 28 small enemies? That's not what the content in Genshin is like. And some characters in test runs have really good builds, and some characters have noblesse with an HP goblet. And it's like, oh, sure, why not? Having trial characters in combat events is a way to actually get a feel for a character properly in their actual team instead of whatever the that Yelan team was, right? One thing that I wanted to mention though is, let's take a look at this, yeah? So I just want to make it very clear, right? This buff and this buff. So we have the sword pointing up and sword pointing down left buffs. So 32% bonus attack. And this is actually not a trial Dehya, right? Trial Hu Tao. You guys can't see it, but trial Xing Tao. But not trial Dehya. This is a level 90 Dehya with an actual build. Right? She's level 90, like they actually built her. This is a level 70 slime. And the final hit of her burst, Vate, by the way, because this is a Hydro slime that has a Hydro aura, is like not even half its health, right? Because it starts here, right? That's level 70 slime. You know what I mean? A single normal attack, remove the same HP. Oh, but yeah, that's not melted, by the way. And I'm pretty sure those enemies are tankier than slimes. Yeah, they're about twice as tanky. I don't mean to drive it home too much. I know you already get it, but yeah. They did not try to make Dehya look good in this. Okay, Leyline Overflow, always nice. Heated Battle Mode for Genshin Impact TCG. First card you play each turn costs 2 less, and first skill you use each turn it costs 1 less. I don't play much TCG anymore. I know they're adding some actual support cards this patch, right? They're adding TOM. I think they're adding Emblem as well. But I don't think it's a lot of support cards. The biggest issue that the TCG has is that there's just not enough variety in the cards that people use. Everyone uses the same deck, basically. There's going to be some variation. There's going to be some decks that focus a little bit more on like defensive that will play stuff like Jade Library. Sorry, not Jade Library. Like Favonius Library. No, that's not the right one. It's what's a Favonius Cathedral? Or like maybe the Lucky Dog, I think. So that heals HP when you cast a skill. But like, Pacman, Leave It to Me, Strategize, Resonance. There's just too many cards that are like very, very good and that are gonna be in almost every deck. There's enough of those cards that like most decks will have all of them, but there's not enough that you have to choose between them. When you have cards that are really good, if every kind of deck can have access to all of them, right? There's no classes, right? The only cards that are restricted are going to be your resonances and your character cards, which like there's only so many of them that you can put in the deck. But when that's the case, there can't be like 20 really good cards if your deck is 30 cards, because people are just going to put the 20 really good cards in every deck. There has to either be like 2 or 3 so that then they have to fill the rest of their deck with something else, or like 60 so that there's actually differences, like there's actually different cards in different decks. Right now, they have like a large amount of good cards, but that's still less than the amount of cards that you can put in a deck, which leads to really, really low variety in deck building, which basically just drove me away from playing the game because most games feel the same. The main thing that changed between different games is how lucky I get, both in, like, obviously dice and draw, but also with how good the opponent is, because it's random matchmaking, right? The nerfs that they did in 3.4 also, I don't think were done right. It seems like their intent with those nerfs were to completely destroy the meta decks rather than bringing them in line with other decks. The Yoimiya nerf was way too much. The Cole like card nerf was fine, or the Quicken nerf was fine. But nerfing both Cole and like Cole's card and Quicken, it's like you over nerfed way too much. Now I haven't played much since 3.4, so I don't know what the meta looks like right now. I know that there's Klee that's like pretty good. Yeah, they also way over nerfed Kenki's, which is just unplayable now. Basically, they saw what was good, and instead of being like, okay, I want there to be more good things, or like I want this to be as good as the other things, they were like, no, you can't play that anymore. I mean, you still can, but it sucks now. And obviously, don't take my word too seriously for this. Like, I have not really paid much attention to the TCG meta. I haven't actually played TCG, I think, at all this patch. Oh yeah, I played one game of TCG this patch against, I don't remember what his name was in the Desert Quest. Spoilers for the Desert Quest. The first part of the Desert Quest. I actually really liked how they gave Azaric Fatui cards as like a way to foreshadow the fact that he was aligned with a Fatui. Anyways, I think this game mode is probably kind of whatever. Gonna make the game so much faster. Unironically, I think it might be a nerf to FTK decks because it makes it so that people have more actions they can do on turn 1, which means that they're less likely to end turn early and let you FTK. But you can probably play around it just by being good too, so yeah. System related update. Archon quests now are in the Adventurer's Journal, which is an incredibly good addition. I think that the Adventurer's Journal is one of the best mechanics that Genshin's open world has. And I think that the dumbest thing in the game, just at all, is the fact that there's only 9 chapters of it. Stuff that gives you direction like this is just really fun. It feels actually satisfying to complete, unlike achievements for a lot of people. Achievements can feel satisfying, but once you start like including achievements that are literally RNG, whether you can complete them or not, because of like commission related achievements and stuff like that, then you start feeling like trash. Stuff like this is just a really good progression system, and the fact that it ends at 9 is just such a shame. They should do more things with the Adventurer's Handbook, so I'm glad that they're, even though it's not exactly what I would want them to do, I really think that they need to add a chapter 10. At least having some form of like reward-based progression through Archon quests is really good. This basically probably just means that they're gonna reduce rewards from Archon quests progression, right? Rewards give you some stuff like this, some stuff like this. A bunch of quests gives you Primogem, stuff like that. They're probably just gonna reduce the rewards accordingly in the future, like from future Archon quests, for it to basically balance out to be the same amount of wishes that they wanted to give. At the end of the day, when Hoyoverse gives you 10 wishes, it's not because they decided to be generous and give you 10 wishes. It's because they know how much they want there to be available free currency, and they're trying to find that sweet spot between giving you enough that the game feels like you can do things even if you don't spend money, but giving you little enough that if you want to do everything that you want to do, you might have to spend money. Point being, this doesn't actually mean more rewards. Like there's nothing that they would do that means more rewards for players. It's always gonna end up being like it's they know how many rewards they want to give, and that's always what they'll give. Like that's it. That's how games like this work. But putting stuff like this behind like claimable stuff, I just think it's a really good way to design stuff. It gives people an incentive to do the things. Okay, and that is it. All in all, 3.5 does not look too good. Both of the characters, the 5-star and the 4-star, are incredibly underwhelming. Archon Quest, that's good. Looking forward to that. Windbloom, I think this part of it sucks. Pacman event, I'm not excited for. The Ozu event, very good. Spices event, such a wasted opportunity. Fungus event, actually pretty good. Looking forward to it. Vibro-Crystal event, somewhat looking forward to it, but cautiously optimistic. Playline, always nice. TCG, don't care about it too much, but meh. And changes to Adventurer's Handbook, very good. We've had worse patches, but the character banners being what they are makes things painful. That's the main reason why I'm not too excited for 3.5. It does have a few good things going for it, but yeah. In any case, that's gonna be it for the special program. Hope you enjoyed yourself, and yeah, see you guys around. Bye, YouTube.